and welcome to this week's video. Why is it that certain subjects seem extremely hard to paint? I recently completed this cat commission and the complex pattern and the variety of brown made it very hard to paint. This week I thought I would break down the process for this sort of painting and give you some general principles to follow so that if you get stuck on a difficult subject matter, you know what to do. Let's get stuck in. Change the way you see the subject. Difficult subjects become manageable when you start thinking of objects in terms of shapes. The stripes aren't lines, they are shapes sitting on a form that wrap around the body of a cat. You have to train your eye to view the reference photo in 3 ways. Firstly, as a 3D form. Secondly, as a collection of small shapes that fit into a larger shape. Thirdly, as one large shape. Your eye needs to be consistently switching between the 3. Every time you add a brush stroke, ask yourself, how does this affect the 3D aspect of my cat? Is it convincing? How does it affect the overall larger shape? Asking yourself these questions will help you train your eye to see these 3 things. Get your values right. By focusing too much on the detail, very often this leads to a value issue. What a lot of artists tend to do is overcompensate on what they think they see and push their values too far. Remember, even though we are dealing with stripes, we are dealing with light and shadow catching that fur, so that will affect our values. The best method is to keep checking your values. If you are painting from life, squint and compare your painting to your subject matter. Squinting will allow you to see where you are out. If you are using a reference photo, you can turn this into black and white. You can then photograph your painting and turn this into black and white too to compare. Remember, your photograph painting will probably be overall a little darker than your photo. What you are looking for is obvious errors in your value relationships. Brown. Seeing the colours in your brown can be hard. Here is a quick tip to help you. Hold a grey card next to your reference photo and ask yourself, can I see red, yellow or blue? This will then help you know what colours you need to mix into your brown to get the right hue. Remember, brown can carry any of these colour hues because it is a neutral, so be prepared to adjust your mix to take into account the following. Value. Mixing brown can be an absolute nightmare and it took me a while to figure out my colour combinations here. In the end, I added a brown to my palette to make my life easier. The colours I used were cadmium yellow light, yellow ochre light, transparent yellow oxide, cadmium red, alizarin crimson, transparent red oxide, ultramarine deep, burnt umber and titanium zinc white. I also mixed 4 warm colours. These were a black red, a red purple and 2 oranges. I also mixed up 3 cooler colours, a black green and 2 other mid-greens. It was much easier to use my brown as a base colour and to adjust into this. To darken the value, I would use either my black red or my black green or both. To lighten it, I had the choice of either white or I could use these 3 colours here. Remember, every colour has a value, so whatever I add to my brown will affect how dark or light it is. What I absolutely don't want to do is just add white, as this will give me a flat, chalky painting. Temperature. Even though my cat is brown, the temperature in her coat shifts from warm to cool. Hence why I have laid my palette out with my warm mixes on this row and my cool mixes on this row. So if I take my base brown as a starting point, burnt umber is a warm brown, I can push it warmer with my oranges, reds and yellows. If I want to push it cooler, I can use my blue, white or any of these mixed greens. You can clearly see in this area here where I've added more orange, placed next to this area here where I've added more green. Chroma. I also have to bear in mind that in some places my colours are much more saturated, so I need to use high chroma colours. My transparent colours work really well mixed with my cadmium colours. Here I mix transparent red oxide with my cadmium yellow to give me this strong saturated orange brown. Placing high chroma colours next to low chroma colours will really help that coat look glossy. To recap then, When mixing your browns, you need to bear in mind value, temperature and chroma. Edge control, where to sharpen and where to lose. One of the biggest mistakes made is painting the stripes with hard edges. I pretty much need a combination of soft and lost edges. Only around the nose and eyes do I need hard edges. The trick is to paint and destroy. So I start off with getting all my markings in place. At this point it looks a bit odd as I'm concentrating on small shapes. I try and paint quite a large section all in one go. If I show you my sittings, you'll see I did the face, then the chest, then the lower part of the body. I was working my way down as it meant at no point would I be leaning on my work and accidentally taking off paint. I then check the values of the area I have painted and adjust block areas where I'm off, so I am looking at larger shapes again. Finally, I take my brush with a good amount of paint, no medium, and begin to rough up my painting and destroy my edges. You can see where I've done that on the chest area with larger brush strokes that give the impression of stripy fur without being too uniform. It's really important to resist the urge to finish everything. Remember, the complexity of that pattern is merely an illusion, and it is up to the artist to create this. Decide which areas need more detail and which don't. I really simplified the back area and concentrated on getting my stripes on the chest and legs. It was just unnecessary to try and paint all my stripes across that back. Concentrating on my temperature shifts and getting my values correct were enough to give it a sense of form. I also needed to be careful I didn't overdo the stripes because I would have lost the facial expression to the detail. The best way to check you are on track is to keep standing back and seeing where your eye is drawn to. If you are drawn to the detail rather than the face, rough the edges of that area up with some paint. Alla prima. The best way to approach a painting like this is to paint it alla prima. If you look at my sittings, you'll see I've done it section by section. This is so I can keep my paint wet and it allows me to pull my edges around more easily. I have also not allowed the paint to dry between sittings, so the whole thing was wet at the end when I started to rough it up. This makes that process much easier. Brush selection. The brushes that you use are really important. I like these flat Art Master brushes. They are relatively soft but do give some level of firmness. They also have a nice sharp edge when they are new. The best way to use these brushes is a little bit like a mini palette knife. You can lay the paint on, you can easily push and pull it around, and you can flick your strokes and get some really expressive brushwork. The long-haired combers work quite well for pulling the paint across the stripes, but they are a little too soft to use solely on their own, and I would say the bulk of the painting was done with the Art Master brushes. I've only really used medium in the background because I have used a lot of transparent paint in my mixes. My paint is quite buttery without the need for medium. Mistakes to avoid. The biggest mistakes you see in a painting like this is hard edges on the stripes, using your colour straight from the tube, incorrect values and incorrect drawing. Ensure the stripes you intend to paint are placed in the right area of your cat. So when you're faced with a difficult oil painting subject, whether it's a striped cat, a tiger or any complex pattern, remember that the challenge isn't the subject itself but how you approach it. By thinking in terms of shapes, controlling your values and being mindful of colour temperature, chroma and edges, you can simplify even the most intimidating references. Focus on the big picture first, let the detail support the former rather than overwhelm it, and always step back to check where the viewer's eye is drawn. I hope you have enjoyed this video. Please like and subscribe and check out my website Sarah Halliday Art, where you will find examples of my work and also details of online classes that I run. Thank you for watching and see you for the next one.